Chapter 22. When Hannah and Gabriel woke, they were lying in a room where the walls were covered with silver. The shine from the walls woke them. They lay on a bed made of silver as well, and the cover and sheets shining with threads of silver woven into the fabric. "What's this? Where are we?" Gabriella said, pushing the covers aside and turning to look at Hannah. "We're in trouble," Hannah said. "This room is built to hold a vampire, but for some reason they've placed us here. If I were to guess, they expect Jovani to come for me." "I hope he does," Gabriella said, placing her feet on the cold floor. "He can't rescue me. That would mean he dies. This room was built not to contain him, but to kill him." Hannah's tone sad and fatalistic. Gabriella paced the length of the room. "If I get a chance, I'm going to kill that bitch and her psycho witch. I can't take any more of this. I'm not used to being someone's prisoner. Jovani will know what to do. He'll find a way to get us out of here. He's our only chance to get free," Hannah said, looking around. "I'm hungry. I hope they bring us something to eat soon. They could starve us to death before he realizes that you're here. Jovani will find me." Hannah wanted to relax Gabriella, who appeared to be freaking out. "I think they have something more sinister for us," Hannah said. Gabriella swiveled around, rushing in the direction of a chair. She spotted her purse lying in the corner, as if someone had thrown it in with them as an afterthought. Gabriella picked it up and opened it. "The holy water and steak are still here. And look, my mallet," she said with an ironic laugh. "What good is holy water and a steak for witches?" Hannah said. "Don't be so negative, Hannah. I'll get us out of here." Gabriella looked around. "I know this place. My mother's friend sold it to someone. I even saw the plans. It's one of those old homes built in the 18th century by an eccentric billionaire. In today's market, he would be worth trillions of dollars or something like that. My mother said he sold it to a woman. The place had an underground apartment in a room made of silver. Years ago silver was the big thing, but it's cheap now. Well, cheap compared to gold." "Where are you going with this, Gabriella?" "If we can get out of here, we still have the holy water and the steak, and when the sun rises, I bet they go to the basement and sleep." Gabriella wandered around the room as Hannah lay watching her, hoping Jovani find them, because so far Gabriella had helped get them into this mess because of her insistence on seeing a palm reader. As Gabriella walked to the bed and sat alongside Hannah, the door opened, and a tall blonde man opened the door and placed a tray down with food for two. He never looked at them, but placed the tray on a small table in the corner. Then an old woman came in behind him with two gowns, one blue and one red. The blonde man said, "After you eat the one that's pregnant," he glanced Hannah's way, "you put on the blue gown and the other one the red." Gabriella sauntered over and picked up the red gown. "They're sheer. I'm not wearing that. Where are we going?" He glanced up at her with little emotion but a hard stare. "You will find out." He moved to the door and opened it, and when he stepped outside he glared at them, closed and locked the door. When Gabriella turned to Hannah, she was eating. "How can you eat at a time like this?" Gabriella said, clutching the blood-red gown in her hands. "I'm eating for my baby. And to live." "Did you think that maybe it was laced with something?" Hannah, hungry, never thought of the consequences. She was taken back to when Lisa said the witch put something in the girls' food and took them out to be sacrificed. They were never seen again. "I've gone through hell since I've met Jovani, and now I'm in hell again, and where is he?" She dropped her fork. Because Gabriella had become impatient with her talk, Hannah began to doubt Jovani once more. Gabriella sat near Hannah, sensing what her words had affected Hannah. She placed her arms around her. "He hasn't awakened yet. The sun hasn't set. Don't worry, I'll take care of you. Don't do me any favors. If it wasn't for you, I would be safe with Jovani. Don't be mean, Hannah. That's not you. It's me. But I promise you that I will find a way to get rid of that witch and that bitch vampire. Hannah turned to Gabriella and gave her a sympathetic smile. It could be worse, but she didn't know how worse it would become. Jovani woke from his sleep. He felt as though his existence was for a reason. It was the first time in a century that he had thought he could put his murderous past behind him. With Hannah being pregnant and he swearing off hunting men for blood to sustain his existence, the night had a new meaning for him. It would be the last night he would exist as Jovani Nightingale. The Jovani Nightingale who haunted the streets of towns and hamlets in countries to rid the world of men like him, predators. And to rid him of his bloodlust. That was no longer his job. He would leave it to mortals, and he would disappear with his woman and his child, and spend the rest of his life making restitution for his crimes against men. He sat up and yawned with his hands stretched wide, and gazed at Connor standing over him with a grave look on his face. "What is it, Connor? Did you take care of the things I assigned to you?" "Yes. Make arrangements to fly your private jet to Alaska on December 1st. You can spend your honeymoon in Alaska for 67 days of no light where the sun is below the horizon. No disturbances." Connor assured him his orders had been followed. "First, I have to get married, and then we live in Capri, Italy at my castle until then. There I can make arrangements to hand over everything to Sasha and say goodbye to her." "Did you speak to her about that?" "I don't." Connor had a curious look on his face when Jovani rose and met him face to face. "What's wrong, Connor? Am I not giving you enough time to be with your family? You will have much more time to enjoy your life, and so will I. You know I'm to be a father." "Yes, I know," Connor said as he helped Jovani into his silk black robe with the initials of JN in white on the pocket. "You haven't said why you have that sour look on your face when I'm feeling rested and happy for the first time in a century." "There's a problem." Jovani turned and tied the bell to his robe and looked at Connor. His eyebrow raised. "Did you go to Hannah's apartment and tell her to be ready to fly to Italy where we can be married? I have to turn over everything to Sasha before then. I'll keep a few things and my gold. If she wants that too, she can have it. I want to be done with Sasha." Jovani's voice swelled from a low to a high pitch. His eyebrows met in his forehead. "You will never be rid of her," Connor said. It was better to tell him now than let him find out. "What are you hiding from me?" Connor wasn't afraid of Jovani because they had been friends since he met him sick and dying on the streets of Manhattan. Jovani needed someone to help him and protect him during the day. After giving Connor a taste of his blood, Connor became well, and the emaciated body that Jovani found in an alley soon turned into a handsome, virile man. Connor showed his gratitude by being a devoted servant. He would do anything for Jovani, including dying for him, because it was Jovani who brought him back from the dead. Took him in after he had been on the streets, living and dying as an alcoholic. "I'm not hiding anything. It's just that I received this letter before I had a chance to get to Hannah. I chose to wait until you woke." Jovani snatched the letter from Connor's hand and opened the envelope with a paper cutter lying on his desk. Jovani read it aloud. "To the most conservative and discerning vampires. You are invited to the auction of the century. We are beginning a new service for vampires who can afford it and are too busy to stock their food. Instead of hunting for a food source and getting tainted blood, we have decided to bring your food to you. You will be able to select the most delectable blood from your host and feed on him or her for months or years if you so choose. The first such auctions will be held tonight between 12 midnight and twilight. You have your choice of men and women. We even have a pregnant female who was once the concubine of a vampire king. She is only for the very rich and for those with discriminating palates. For one price, you will get a female host and her daywalker to do as you wish. The bidding for the pregnant female and her daywalker child will start at $1 billion. Jovani's breathing became intense. His sharp razor-like incisors descended when he became enraged, and he was more than enraged. Tell me you spoke to Hannah. He had Connor by the throat. Connor's eyes grew large. He had never seen Jovani like this before. At least his rage had been directed at others, not at him. When I reached her home, she and her friend were gone. My contacts said that they had gone for a walk. These were the people I had to depend on to watch her as I took care of your arrangements for your wedding and honeymoon. Jovani's eyes grew sad, and he dropped Connor to his feet. Why am I getting this letter? Is it to lure me over to Sasha's place, and then for her to tell me that my Hannah is dead? I don't think so. From my contacts, this is just a form letter Sasha sent out to all known rich and prominent vampires. The ones dropping these off didn't realize or know the history of you and Sasha. Jovani paced back and forward. Get my tux. I have to be there early. Sasha wouldn't dare. Jovani didn't say a word. He knew she dared do that, and then much more. Connor left the room, and when he returned, he looked even more bewildered and upset. There's a detective here to speak to you. Do you want to see him? Jovani thought for a moment. Tell Detective Mallory I'm in. It's a man. I think he said his name was Bell. When Jovani dressed, he sauntered into the living area to find Detective Bell looking out the large glass terrace. When the detective turned in a hurry because he felt someone or something looking over his shoulder. I didn't mean to startle you. My name is Detective Bell. I'm sorry to come at such a late hour, but I was told that that is the only time I can catch you. Jovani turned and walked in the direction of the liquor cabinet. Would you like something to drink? Turning facing Detective Bell with a decanter in his hand and a glass, the detective said, I'm still on duty. Then please sit and let's get this over with. I have someplace to be, and then I'm flying out on my jet, and I'm getting married. Are you married, Detective? Jovani waved his hand to indicate where Detective Bell should sit. Jovani placed the decanter down after the detective refused the drink, and Jovani sat across from him. I've been married. But now I'm single. I'm marrying a wonderful woman. Her name is Hannah. Hannah? Is it Hannah St. John? Why, yes. How do you know her? She was thought to be a missing person. How is it you're her fiancé and you never reported her missing? Jovan stood and glared down at Detective Bell with cold blue eyes. This look never rattled Detective Bell before, but it did now. He had seen his share of dangerous men, but Jovani fell into another class, and he couldn't figure out which one. Maybe because she wasn't missing after all. She was away with me in a friend's cabin in Virginia. You can contact Lysel Samsa, he'll verify what I've said. Detective Bell folded his fingers in front of him and raised an eyebrow. What I came here for is to ask you questions about Detective Mallory McLeod. Jovani smiled. Yes? I remember her. She came here to question me about a series of murders in this area. Facing the Manhattan skyline with his back to Jovani, Detective Bell said, She's dead. Jovani turned with a jerk. We think it's murder made to look like a suicide. Jovani's face pale became even more. It had to be the work of Sasha, and he knew it. Maybe she thought Mallory was after him and killed her for it. He shuddered to think what she would do to Hannah and his baby if given half the chance. But he wouldn't give her the chance. He knew that the invitation to the auction was because she was going to auction off Hannah to any vampire who could bid the highest. He had to stop the auction. You have to go now, Detective. There is something very urgent I have to tend to. If I'm not a suspect, then please leave. The detective rose from his seat. He knew something had upset Jovani, but he wasn't a suspect. He was just a witness. Or could be. Come to the station when you have time and answer a few questions. You're not a suspect. But we would like to know the time she left your place and where she said she was going. Home. She said she was going home. My servant Connor will see you to the door. Jovani stood a second and watched at Detective Bell. He detected the uneasiness of the detective body in his facial expression when he said that he was due to marry Hannah. It wasn't of a disinterested man. Jovani smelled the detective body and saw his body language, which signaled to him that his interest was more of the carnal nature, and because of that interest the detective may take a closer look into his life and Hannah's life. If he posed a threat to Jovani when it came to Hannah, or if anyone posed a threat to him, he would be willing to do anything to mitigate that threat. Jovani was a lonely being who traveled alone and found no comfort in being alone for the rest of his days. He had found the one person who could fill his lonely life with passion and give him what he needed to walk this earth, a companion who could make his life such as it is worth something, bringing another life into this world. When Connor returned from showing Detective Bell out, he stood glaring at Jovani as if asking what next. I need you to dress not as a driver, because you won't be that tonight. We're about the same size, so find a tux that will fit you because you will accompany me to Sasha's castle. I'll probably need you. Connor felt honored that Jovani would need him. He had been little more than a driver at night and someone to handle his business during the day. I need someone to have my back and watch out for that witch Sasha keeps to do her revolting foul deeds.